Welcome to the Wing Life Podcast, where we talk about wing foiling and the lifestyles of those who enjoy this great sport. Fernando, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Well, first of all, I do appreciate the invitation to be here and having a chat with you guys. It's really cool to talk about what I like and what I love to do.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
well, my day here today was really mellow. I didn't go out. I just enjoy my family as I travel so much. When I'm here at home, I try to be available for them as much as I can. So, whenever the waves are not so good, I just stay at home and chill with my girls.
Nice.
Hey, that sounds good. Where do you live?
Well, I live in a city called Santos. It's nearby São Paulo. São Paulo is the biggest city of Brazil. Well, actually might be the biggest city in South America. And I
Yeah,
live
probably.
about 40 minutes away from this big city. And Santos is a really nice, chill, small. Well, it's not so small anymore. I always relate myself to Santos when, like 25 years ago, when it used to be small. But right now, the city had grown so much, almost like double the population. So it's still mellow for me to live here. Like the city's all flat, and like I can ride my bike anywhere within 30 minutes. So it's not like the idea of the 15-minute city, but it's
Yeah.
quite chill, like I can ride a bike, I can do everything by walk. I don't need to grab my car to do much, so it's really nice.
Yeah, it sounds like a great setup.
Have you lived there your whole life, or?
Yeah, it's a great city. Yeah, I lived here my whole life. Well, I tried to live on the northeast of Brazil 2 years ago. I lived in Jericoacoara, and it was a good experience, but I missed the waves, so I decided to come back here, and then I'm here all my life. Well, actually, I lived in California back in the day for a few years, but I always came back home as well.
Nice.
Nice.
So what kind of conditions do you have there? You kind of hinted towards there having a little bit more of a wave scene than in Jericoacoara.
Well, here is like if you go on a forecast and you see a swell that's saying that it's 1.1 at 12 seconds, if you get at the beach, you will definitely find like chest high, maybe head height sets, right? 1.1, it's really small. So there's always waves. If I see a forecast of 0.7 or zero point 0.5 even, if there's a good tide coefficient, for sure I'll find waves whenever the tide changes its course. So there's always something to ride.
Hey,
Awesome.
fun.
And what kind of a setup is it? Is it kind of beach breaky or more reef or point break?
Well, it's majority beach breaks, and there is one break which is really nice. Is the place that I go all the time, which is really good for foiling. It's actually a river mouth. It's almost like even if there's no waves, but if there's a big current, that will be something breaking. So it's like it's fully sand, but it has a really really strong current as is a river mouth. So it's like it's a unique wave because you have so much current pulling back that anything that you stand on, you will be flying on the foil. So it's almost like a river, like a tidal bore wave. It's pretty
Oh,
crazy.
awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
So you're almost stationary when you're riding the wave, I guess.
Yeah, if it's full moon or new moon and the tide is like dragging out super strong, man, it's almost like you're standing on the same place. It's crazy.
And then you get to foil that. Oh, that would be sweet.
Man, actually, the foil have changed um, my the way I see surfing in general because this place used to be a very short wave because the current is so strong, and for a short board to be able to ride, you need a wave that steeps up and run. So this
Hmm.
place, the wave steeps up, it runs, but it only runs for like 100 meters. But the
Okay.
swell runs forever as the sand gets deep. So even if it
Okay.
gets deep, the wave stops breaking, but it still rolls for 2 or 3
Nice.
more minutes. So
Wow.
foil really changed the way I see this spot.
Amazing. And you're prone foiling this wave as well, I guess, from what you're saying?
Well, I began prone foiling in there. Well, actually, I began subfoiling. My first contact with foiling was with the SUP. I started going with the SUP in this place because the current is so strong and the lineup is so large that if you prone, it will take like 20 minutes to pedal back up to the point. And on the
Oh wow.
SUP, it's a shorter paddle back. But
Yeah.
after a while, after like 1 month and a half or 2 months after I started foiling, I got really psyched on prone foiling. And then I was going to this spot, even though the pedal was so long, I was psyching to prone foil in there because it's completely different when you foil on a SUP and then when you foil on a 4042 board, a small board, it's like it's a different sensation. And then I
Oh yeah,
did a
totally.
lot of, yeah, I did a lot of prone sessions in there. But then my friends, they started foiling as well, and they bought a jet ski, and then you get spoiled.
Oh yeah, you would.
Big
Yeah, that's
time.
totally cheating, but it's so fun, the toe foiling.
Well, it is cheating, but man, if you think properly, in 30 minutes you're done.
Yeah.
In 30 minutes of,
Mm,
of a session, you're done. And if you go out to have a session like a 2 hour session, man, you will be mind blown. You will be
yeah.
like fully endorphinated and like super stoked, like you were having like barrels and big surf. And you look back, you surf like a 4 feet wave, and that was it. But your head will
Yeah.
be so big, you will be so stoked. So the jet ski is expensive. It makes
Yep.
a mess on the lineup. It might bother some people, but for real, man, it's a game changer for sure. You know.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it lets you ride, you know, small foils, small boards, and just get on whatever you want to get on and keep going. I think that's part of the issue that I have with prone foiling is that I wanna ride the same foils I'm riding winging, you know, on bigger waves, and I want to be able to
You
ride those
can't.
big waves. But
No,
the
you can't.
takeoffs are just insane if you're doing that. So
Yeah.
with the jet ski, or you know, I've toe foiled with a dinghy, it's like a little Zodiac, and you
Yeah,
can
it
just get pulled
works.
into whatever you want. It's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. The only thing with the dinghy is that it's not so maneuverable, or it's not as maneuverable as the jet ski. So with the jet ski,
Mm,
it's like less time consuming on a session. Like in one
Yeah.
hour with the ski, you will have many more waves than you would with the dinghy. But the dinghy still
Definitely.
works just fine, Like the jet ski
yeah.
is like it's a good machine, but it's super expensive. It's hard to maintain. There's pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think in the towing context, especially if you're getting into a little bit more serious swell, then the jet ski is almost obligatory because the dinghy is super sketchy. Like you can't be caught on the inside with the dinghy; it's not gonna end well.
Yeah. At least the dinghy will never sink. It flips, but it doesn't sink. That's a good point.
True. That is true.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
got to watch out for the engine, I guess.
Yes. If it's well tight on the well, when we use the ding, we tighten on the back of the ding, but we do the rope as well to be sure if it flip, the thing will never fall off. Yeah.
That's a good point. When did
Cool.
Fernando? What was your entry into water sports?
Um, well, my entry in water sports, first I got fascinated with the ocean. I have been in
Okay.
the ocean since like 1 year, since my mother's belly. Since I was in her belly, I was already. My grandmother, she used to spear dive.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
then I pretty much grew up in the ocean. When I was 5, I had my first contact with boards, like boogie boards and stuff, just being on the shore break. And then I really started surfing when I was around 12. From 12
Okay.
on, I started going by myself. I actually, when I was really young, this is a funny story. My mom, she would not allow me to go surfing by myself or with my older friends because I was smaller and younger than everybody else, and she was
Okay.
afraid of the ocean. And I always, well, Brazil, you know that we have the big soccer culture. So everybody plays soccer since young age. So my older
Hmm.
friends, they used to go to the beach to play soccer on the beach. And some of these friends had surfboards and they were going to surf. And then I
Yeah.
used to tell my mom, I'm just going to the beach to play soccer with my friends. And I would get back from the beach with my eyes like fully red and super tired and hungry. And like, I couldn't lie, after 2 or 3 times I did that, she found out.
Nice.
Yeah, I had to run away to go surfing. But from that on, man, I started surfing on shortboards and I started, well, I wanted to have boards, a lot of boards, because it's you need boards to evolve in surfing, but I didn't have the
Hmm.
money to buy boards. And then my father introduced me to a shaper, an old shaper from my city, from the town where I live. And the guy said, "Oh, you like board? Da, 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 da. Do you want to have a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to learn something." And I was on this shaping bay, and he said, "Do you see the broom?" And yeah, yeah. Now what? That's how you start in the
Yep.
surf building, uh, surfboard building world. That's how you started. And then I got the broom. I started sweeping and cleaning the shaping bay when I was 14. And when I
Okay.
was 15, I learned how to catalyst the resin. And from that,
Nice.
I learned how to do ding repairs. From that, I started doing fin jobs on boards. And from 15 all the way until 25, maybe even more, I always built boards. So
Nice.
I was always connected to surfing, but working in the surfing industry as well, building boards actually.
Hmm.
Very cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. I still like to have to build some boards. Once in a while, I go to my. I have a friend that build boards and foils here, and once in a while, I glass some boards just to make an extra cash, and that's it.
Okay. Nice. So that's how you kind of got around the cash situation when you were younger then.
Yes, exactly. Because my parents never had money to, but I'll give you a board, I'll give you some money to go surfing somewhere. No, I always needed to, have my own stuff.
No, that's fair. Do you find that
Yeah.
gave you a bit more, it gave you a different look into the sport? Because not only now were you learning the sport, but you're also learning how to do everything and you saw the work and effort that went into making a board.
Yeah, totally. And the passion as well.
Yeah.
The passion of building boards, like when you have the knowledge of, well, I had surfers usually have the knowledge of surfing, the guy buy a
Mhm.
board, he buy wax, he buy the wetsuit, he go to the beach and he surfs. But there's the other side where you build the
Mm.
board. So I was fully fascinated and passionate about building the boards and being in the surfboard factory environment, which is
Okay.
well, you have like a pretty much like a family. You have a shaper, you have a laminator, you have a sander, you have someone cleaning, someone doing ding repairs, and you
Okay.
work with these people on a daily basis. And you go surfing with these people. And then after
Hmm.
surfing, you go to the factory to work with these people. And then you have lunch with these people. And then it becomes a family.
Yes. Yes.
So it's not just going to the beach and surfing. There's a whole culture behind it from people that
Hmm.
build and make the sport, go on and on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that passion and joy of finding out the ground floor to then taking that to the water, that would be pretty cool, actually.
Oh, it's amazing. You have a lab for yourself where you have you can experiment, you can create, you can create different designs, different shapes. You can create different different types of lamination, which and then it comes with the composite side. So there's so much to be done in a surfboard factory, from creation, testing. There's a lot to be done. It's really, really good.
Oh, nice. And then when you're getting out and riding, because you have that knowledge, did you find there was an easier transference over from like, okay, if I change this, then you change it kind of thing?
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Okay.
I did a lot of glassing. I can shape a board for myself or for someone, but I became a professional glasser.
Oh,
So I could tell, well, all the boards that I glassed for myself, they have never break.
okay.
Never. Well, I used to have issues with,
Oh wow. So what's the special sauce?
well, when I do epoxy, I do a lot of epoxy glassing on regular
Hmm.
shortboards. I like, the lap, when you do let's say you glass the bottom and then you do the lap. This lap has to be big when you do the rail, right? So the rails have the strength. And then the way you dry out the resin off the cloth, you don't want to dry it out too much, and you don't want to leave it too much resin. And then you learn how to do it. So my boards, they never break. I have a board. I was actually looking for this board yesterday in my garage. I laminated this board 7 years ago. And as the epoxy resin is not like the polyester resin, as it dries out and keeps drying it out until it cracks. The epoxy resin, once it's dry forever, and it becomes like plastic. It's not
Mhm.
like glass, like Vidric. It's like the epoxy resin. If you laminate a sheet and you bend, it will bend. With the polyester resin, if you laminate a sheet and you bend, it cracks, right?
Okay.
So the epoxy resin lasts forever. So I looked at the board in my garage, and the board is yellow. It's ugly, of course, because of the sun, but the lamination is still rock solid. It's still rock solid. I can ride the board,
Nice.
man, and it won't break. And I get really happy with that because, I know I did a good job.
Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that epoxy definitely does have much better mechanical properties, as you're saying. Even when it ages, it still stays a lot less brittle and less likely to have spider cracks and all that kind of fractures and stuff like that. And obviously, it's a much stiffer resin as well, so you can use a little bit less glass and you get the same kind of stiffness. So yeah, it's nice.
Much better, much better.
Yeah.
Actually, Tom, like you're right now, you're fixing your catamaran and rebuilding your catamaran, so you guys would have a lot to talk about actually in this area.
Yeah, I'm knee deep in resin every day.
Yeah. Well, I think on a catamaran, doing the resin part is not as bad as sanding. So good luck on that.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It's like 90% sanding and 10% glassing, and I really, really like the glassing part. The sanding part a little bit less, but yeah.
Well, just be
Okay.
patient, take your time, and take it as as a fun, as art, as something that you do for relaxing. Well, unless you have a rush to go sailing somewhere.
No, I don't have a rush, but it's a big project, so things need to
Mhm.
keep moving. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I've definitely been quite fortunate to have a situation where I can take the time that it needs to take and be able to do good work and not just have to rush through things and kind of botch things. So that's been quite
Mhm.
nice.
Not bad of a lifestyle, huh?
Yeah, it is more fun to just sail though. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, but one who lives and works with boats know that boats require a lot of work.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So it's part of
Mhm.
life.
it
That
never
is
ends.
true.
Yeah.
When did you start foiling, Fernando?
I started foiling between the 16 and 2017, I guess. Yeah, I was
Okay.
right around there. The end of
Okay.
16.
Down to 16. Okay. Now, what are your thoughts on the kind of progression of foils that you've been on? Because you've probably been on quite a few generations by now.
Man, I feel really happy, and I feel that I have that I did a lot of contributions for the industry, especially with F1.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, because in the beginning, when I started surfoiling, the surfoils were not great at all. Well, they
Okay.
were, we could surf, but we couldn't surf as good as we can now. Uh, the foils were not as, how can I put it, performative as they are right now. We used
Hmm.
to ride the foils with a lot of aluminum pieces and like thick fuselage, and like the way of construction was not so great. The foils that I started, they were 3D printed. The wings were 3D printed and then
Okay.
laminated. The fuselage was built on aluminum and the mast as well.
Okay.
So the wings, the project of the front wing and back wing were good, but the construction was not so great. So, well, it was,
And
well,
it's more than performance, I think, as well. It's also ease of use, right? Because the early foils, there's very, very few foils that were made in those years that were relatively, user friendly. Never mind easy to ride, and never mind performance oriented.
well,
So
the first foils we saw, especially like, let's say, they really thought about big foils, like 200 centimeter foils. This is what they thought about. I recognize that they thought about that to be able to glide at slow speeds, and they were not thinking about doing maneuvers and crazy stuff like we're doing now. I think they just
Hmm.
thought about gliding and making the board fly, right? So they thought about big foil, which works. I remember the first videos I saw on regarding foiling was from Kailani doing the with the I guess they took a 14 foot board and they chopped the tail off and they put the three tracks for boxes and they put a foil in there, and then Kailani went doing the downwinder somewhere in Hawaii, I guess, and the video
Okay.
went out to the world. I think
Hmm.
he's
everybody saw that video. There's that one and the one where he pumps back out to get a second wave, and I remember that just being like mind blown. Just like
yeah, these videos, I think it
crazy.
was a game changer for everybody that was looking for something different to do in the ocean. Because as
Hmm.
we get old and we have major responsibilities, we cannot be available for the swell and for the conditions to go surfing all the time, right? We
Hmm.
have to work, we have children, we have big responsibilities. So whenever we go
Hmm.
to the beach, it's not when the conditions are great, is when we have some time off. And
Hmm.
the majority of my time off, the condition they wouldn't be great. So that's the magic of a hydrofoil, because you can go to the ocean, even the conditions are really bad, you can still have the time of your life foiling.
That's true. That's true.
So I was
Totally.
I
And
was
then if
motivated.
you take it a step further for people that don't have access to the ocean beside them, you can still have fun on lakes.
Yeah,
Because
you can
before
pump
that,
foil on a lake, or you can pump foil on the pond. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah. And even looking
totally.
at wind, because Tom and I would sail in the Great Lakes back in Ontario, and wind would get bigger, swell would get bigger, but then like even on the light end of things, we could have fun and like next to nothing. Even if it's a foot, you can still, it's crazy how much it makes you feel that it's a big wave or a big like big roller, even though it's tiny. Like that still boggles and it's still so cool.
Hey, I think it's because our reference for speed completely changed. Because
Mm,
before foiling, um, my recognition of speed, I would need a big wave to have the same amount of speed I have on a small wave with my foil. So
mm-hmm,
my body recognized a high speed riding a big wave, and now I get high speed riding nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. You ride a wave,
Yeah.
you ride a bump around 25 to 30 kilometers per hour. And which to be able to reach that speed, I think you need a big wave, at least a 4 feet, 5 feet wave to be able to ride at 25 to 30 kilometers per hour, right? I'm not
Totally.
saying that
Absolutely.
we are not looking for speed, but I'm just relating to the sensation we have.
Mm-hmm. And the
Yeah, I think.
acceleration and all that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the way that I like to think of it is less, as you're saying, about the speed, but more about the feeling that the wave is pushing us forward, and that we have energy to stay on the wave and kind of do whatever we want, and that we're not kind of stuck trying to pump and pick up speed, and always just trying to stay on the wave, but we have enough projection to actually accelerate and do turns and kind of go where we want to go. And I think that's to me, that's kind of how I feel the foils really distinguish things, because flat out speed wise, you're not actually going all that fast, especially on beginner foils or the early generation thicker foils. The new ones is a little bit different. You feel like you're going so fast, it's crazy. I remember when I started windsurf foiling, I felt like I was going twice as fast as I was going, even though the speed didn't really change.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Yeah, the thing is that having us of the sensation of the foil being the extension of your feet is not just
Mm-hmm.
about speed, it's about freedom pretty much. Because
Yeah.
it's like, well, I like to relate foiling as skateboarding, because
Okay.
like I have a background on skateboarding as well, and I did never like skateboarding on the streets. I like to skate on big how can I say, big plazas or
Like
big
parking
places.
lots.
Yeah, big parks where I don't need to put my feet on the ground, where you can
Okay.
connect from transition from ramp to ramp. And
Oh, cool.
foiling brings this feeling, because you can take off on a wave, and then you can pump to the next ramp, and then you can do a turn on that ramp, and then you look back, there's another ramp on the back, and you pump to that ramp, and then you connect multiple ramps. It's just like skating. It's like just
Yeah.
like you want a park, the foil being
Yeah.
the extension of your feet in the water, which is really nice. It's crazy to glide over like a pelican over the water. Isn't that amazing?
It's the coolest feeling. And it is like, I would relate windsurfing to that. You had to earn all these different steps just to be able to go upwind, and same with kiting and all that kind of thing. But then with winging, it's just pure excitement and fun, because you can actually just take a cruise and go look at stuff and say, hey, I'm going to go to the other side of the lake or the other side of here. I'm going to sightsee, and then I'm going to do a huge downwinder. And like,
Yeah.
it's such a different feeling.
Yeah, and the best thing is the silence,
Yeah.
which when you have a drag board, you don't notice the silence.
Yep.
The one thing that it caught my attention in the beginning with foiling, I was foiling a wave at my home break, the home break that I was mentioning before, and all of a sudden I see this seagull on top of my head, like yelling at me. Ah! Ah! Man, I would never notice a seagull yelling at me if I was on a drag board,
Yep.
because I would be dragging on the water and I couldn't hear anything. But with the foil, you're silently flying. You get to notice everything around you. It's really
Hmm.
cool.
I think the first time I
Totally.
went winging was with Tom in Montreal, and I hadn't got up like that before with that absolute silence. And when I got up for the first second, it blew my mind.
It's
Like, I
crazy.
looked around and it went from chop chop to nothing. I was like, whoa, it actually brought tears to my eyes, because it was like,
Yeah.
I never thought I would ever be able to do this. And then just the feeling that it brought was amazing.
What a time to be alive, huh? We're so
Oh yeah,
fortunate.
absolutely. Were the early foils, was that F1? Like, how long have you been working with F1?
Well, I actually started with my friend,
Okay.
King Foil. He makes foils here in Santos. And then I started with him. I rode his foils for a year or so. And then I had a little time with Unifoil from South Africa. I rode their foils for a few months, and then I started working with F1. I think it was 19 maybe. Yes,
Okay.
in the beginning of 19.
Oh, it's been a while.
And yeah, it's been a while already. We first started with the gravity foils, and then we developed the phantom foils. And now we're coming up with a new foil that's about to be launched in April.
Ooh, I
Nice.
would love to hear
So
about that when you can talk
yeah,
about it.
just before
Very nice.
you get to that though, what's your position at F1? What do you do with F1? Just to get a little bit of background.
Well, I ride for them pretty much. I'm just a rider. But um, as I got in there in the beginning, um, they had only the gravity foils, and I was already riding faster and more performatic foils, and the gravity was more like a beginner foils, and I was
Yeah.
already ahead, and I was not comfortable to start to work. Well, actually in the beginning I might have been closed minded, but it's hard to
Okay.
change from something really good to something that is not so good. I'm talking about
Mm-hmm.
performance. But and then next year they came up with the Phantom, and then with the Phantom, I was like, man, that's it, let's go. And I remember first time I met Julian Salles, the son of Rafael Salles. Julian is like his manager of Manera and F1 with his dad. And I remember
Okay.
I said he took me to the airport and he said goodbye, and I said, "Yeah, see you soon." And he goes and he came up to me and said, "We're gonna make the best surf foils on the planet."
Hmm.
And after that, man, only good stuff. After good stuff coming, better foils, better materials, like a lot of development. And I do a lot of contributions on that as well, because like especially in the beginning of our relationship, the sport was blowing up. Everything was
Mm-hmm.
blowing up at the same time. And I did a lot of contributions on my way of approaching the sport, because actually in the very beginning, like around 2018,
Mm-hmm.
there was not too many people trying to surf, really surf. I mean, bottom turn, top turn, like with this kind of approach. And I was already doing that. I was already
Okay.
looking for that. And then that's why I bought so much to every foil manufacturer I met in the beginning, because everybody was looking for that, but they didn't know what a foil would need. How should a foil be built in order to surf?
Okay.
And with my
Yeah, it's
I
true. Those early generations were often more kind of just about staying up on the foil and catching a wave, but they weren't
yeah,
really about the high performance riding, top to bottom, as you're saying.
yeah, I'm not an engineer, but I know I feel what I need from a foil. I feel where the foil should have more curvature, or where the span should be bigger, should be wider, or the chord. I know what I need to surf good on a foil. So even though
Okay.
I'm not an engineer, I can speak to an engineer and kind of find the line of thought, to align and build something nice.
Hmm. Well, you grew up in the ocean, and then you grew up as well building. So do you find that helped out, and that kind of was kind of like a seamless transition into kind of engineering?
Yeah, for sure. I just need to, well, I'm too old to go to school now. I'm 40 years
Yeah.
old. Like, I don't know if I have the time now to start engineering school. Well, I can,
Yeah.
but there are so much to do that I'd rather do something else, especially
That's
being
fair.
on the water. Because if I
Yep.
ought to choose to be in the library or be in the college to study, I won't be able to be in the ocean as much. So
That's
maybe
true.
maybe when I turn 55 or 60, where I'm not so conditioned anymore, then I'll start looking at more books.
Hey, that's
Yeah, I
okay.
think either way, we're still so far from the point where you need to be an engineer to be optimizing all of these things. I think there's so much that can still
Hmm.
happen
Oh
in
yeah,
terms
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
that. You know, we're not there that it needs to be that. And even if we are, if you look at all the big foil companies, shapers are not engineers. They're people that have spent a lot of time on the water that are mechanically minded and understand, like you're saying, what they need out of a foil to make it do what they'd like it to do. And I think there's a lot of experimentation, a lot of mistakes that are made, and you learn a lot from that. And little by little, you figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah, in the end of the day, you need a team. It's like
Hmm.
Yeah,
building a foil. It's not like a one-man job. You need the rider, you need the engineer, you need the composite master, you need the little bit of work of everyone.
yeah,
Hmm. When did you, do you want to walk us through your first time wing foiling?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
my first
Is
time.
that your first
uh,
wind sport, by the way, or did you do another wind sport before that?
No,
Oh, good question.
I wanted to kite. I wanted to do windsurf, but where I live, the wind is really bad and light.
Okay.
So I never had an opportunity to try any wind sport. And in 2019, Julian gave me a wing just to try it out. And my first session was a nightmare. I thought I was the shit on the foil, huh? I thought, nah, come on, this is gonna be easy, man. Foiling is easy for me. The wing won't be so easy. And then on my first session, I remember I had like 140 little liters and a very big foil, like over 2,000 centimeter. The wind was light, and I did not manage to take off. I went downwind for about 9 or 10 kilometers, and I had to walk back
Oh wow.
carrying the cross on my back.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
it's
a
the
good
walk
walk
of
of shame.
shame, man. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all have to go through that. And after that, I picked up like it wasn't so hard. What was the most difficult part for me was like understanding the wind, because when we
Yeah.
surf, we see the energy that we're gonna ride. And when you do wind sports, you don't see the energy. You will see the energy, you will see the clouds passing by, you will see the gusts hitting the water, you will see the palm trees shaking, but you don't see the wind. You feel it.
Mm,
So that's a bit more difficult than just surfing.
okay.
But with practice, it becomes easier and easier. I think winging might be the easiest wind sport you can have. The difficult part is foiling, but foiling you can make easier as well.
Yeah, it's definitely the easiest high performance wind sport, in my opinion. I think if
Good point.
you windsurf without the high performance part, if you just kind of putt around, I think that's a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
easier.
that's the
But
easiest. Yeah, that's the easiest for sure. With the dagger
but
fin
having said
board.
that, yeah, having said that, you could use a similar style board with a wing,
I
and at that
do
point,
for
the
teaching.
goal is not. Yeah, exactly. And then the goal is not to go up on the foil; it's just to cruise around, and that might be easier actually than windsurfing. I'm not
Oh
sure.
man, when I teach wing foiling, I first teach with the dagger fin, just with the wing, and as
Okay.
soon as my student is able to, even though he doesn't jibe, even he just goes, jump off the board, changes stances, and comes back on same place, he's ready to foil with the
Oh
wing.
yeah.
That's how I teach. And then second lesson or third lesson, depending on the student. So, like I said, as soon as the student is coming and coming back, going and coming back on the same spot, as soon as the student managed to stay upwind, for me, he's ready to foil. Some people would say that the guy needs to do the transition, but not really, because to do a transition on the foil is completely different than doing the transition without the foil. Even though you
Hmm.
have to
Yeah, I totally
land,
agree.
you have to land the foil and do the transition. So why spend time to make my student to do a jibe if I can fast forward and make him foil? He will have to drop the foil anyway to do the jibe. I want my student
Hmm.
to foil because it's completely different when you just go upwind without the foil and with the foil. So
Yeah,
as
Oh
soon as
yeah.
the student is managing the wing, holding the wing steady in the air, like not dropping the tip in the water, not falling over the wing, as soon as he's up, well postured and stable, manages to stay upwind, then he's ready for the foil. And I did a lot of teaching in Jericoacoara. Then
Okay.
it's very strong wind, but it's kind of flat water. So we use the boat. We go with the boat and with the radio on the student, vest, helmet, everything that one need, and that's it. 2 hours, the guy's flying.
Oh, cool. Now, even staying upwind on like a dagger board kind of thing, that's not easy. Like a lot of the time, they end up quite downwind pretty fast. Like, how do you find? Obviously, we could get into the technicals of what would be required, but you're finding people are able to do that relatively quickly?
It depends. I always do one. I always give one information that changes everything. People need to understand that what does the connection between the board or between the foil and the wing is our
Mhm.
body. So
Okay.
if we're not transferring force from the wing or from the foil to the wing and vice versa, if I'm not transferring force, right, it will not work. So first
Hmm.
thing, people need to understand that upper limbs, you kind of pull and hang on the device, pull and hang at the same time. And your lower limbs must be pushing. So
Yep.
you're spreading the force. And that way, when you push with your legs and you pull with your arms, your body is fully connected. The tension is traveling through all your body, right? So when you have your student with your hips flexed and the hips back like
Yeah.
this and the
Yeah.
arms up, this guy will never be able to fly steady, even without the foil. He will not be able to connect the wing with the board. So if you give this advice, if you give these little tips to the student before they start, everything changes and they develop they develop faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach on Vancouver Island in the summer times, and there's a whole bunch of different tips, but that one is huge. And then the foot positioning as well, I found was huge as well, because a lot of people in Canada are coming from snowboarding kind of background where you kind of stand duck footed like
Yeah.
this. So you're actually not facing forward, more of a surf stance on the board.
Yeah, but
And
these
then,
things,
yeah,
this positioning things
yeah,
is really an anatomy thing
hmm
because each one of us we have different shapes, we have different postures, we have different sizes of feet, of femurs, of hips. So the positioning on the board may vary from experiences and
okay,
from sizes and shapes of limbs.
fair.
So it's really how the student feels comfortable with. Because I've seen people standing like this, duck
Okay,
footed. I've seen people standing like this with one foot on the other side.
okay,
Everything works
okay,
for who?
fair. Yeah,
So
no,
each
that's a valid point. That's a valid point based on anatomy. Absolutely.
and for us who are teaching, is our obligation to identify each student and identify how we can improve the positioning of each student based on their own experiences and on their own anatomy. It's,
Mhm.
it's up to us to fix the student. They have to find their comfortable positioning, but we have to spot and say, hey, change this, change that. You will feel better, you will do better, and so on.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not about us, the instructors, in that sense. It's about helping them find that for themselves, and some will vary, which very much makes sense. Yeah. What do you find is the most fun aspect of teaching?
Making friends and
Yeah.
bringing people to the sport.
Okay.
Here in Brazil, I have kind of this legacy since I started doing the clinics. And wing foiling is so inclusive that the first clinic I did, I gathered like for 2 weeks. I gathered like in one weekend, I had 10 people. And the other weekend, I had 20 people. Let's say that 30% of all the students had no experiences on any water sports.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so these
Good.
people, they became sailors and wing foilers after they took the clinic with me. They were just there in a hotel and they were looking for some activity. They were in vacation at the hotel and they were looking for
Okay.
something to do. And I was there to teach wing foiling for some people that were already into wing sports. But these other people, as they were in the hotel looking for something to do, they came at me, hey, I want to try that. And I said, okay, let's go. And nowadays they became my friends. And
Yeah.
I meet with them when I go to the beach to go sailing. And
Yeah.
that's really nice. Like the community and the friends and the family that forms around it.
Hmm.
It amazes me.
Yeah, it's definitely something we've talked about before. There's a big contrast between the wind sport community and the surf community. And I think especially with winging, because the sport's so young and everybody's so stoked on it, and everybody just tries to get more wingers out and just spread the passion for the sport and whatnot. Compared to surfing, where it kind of feels like in certain spots, people don't really would rather that you stay on the beach and they get more waves for themselves.
Yeah, surfing is different, man. I always notice that the vibe and the environment between the wind, between the sailors, they're more like families. Surfers, they're more reclusive. Like surfers don't like crowds, and
Hmm.
sailors don't bother with crowd as much as surfers do, unless the wave riders. But
Yeah.
still, is they're more open. The sailors are more open to people, and surfers they don't like people. Here's crowded. Go there. Get out of here. Too many people. Don't pedal on my wave. Get out. Cook my wave.
It's true. Yeah, it's happened to all of us.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Totally.
Looking at F1, like they came out with the swing was their first V1, and it was pretty much one of the leading wings that I tried because I had the 5 meter swing. Are you able to talk about maybe the development of the wings at F1? Um,
Well, F1 they have their own point of view. They have their own mentality of how the sport should be. So in F1, you might not see as the wings as the other companies are doing. I think F1 really focus on the fun aspect of the sport. They want to have a wing where you're going to be riding for 2 or 3 hours and you're not going to be destroyed because the wing is so stiff. That's why
mhm,
a lot of people talk about the stiff handles. Why don't F1 don't do the stiff handles? There's a lot of reasons for them not to do the stiff handles. You know, F1, I think they want to have the best surf oriented wings. So you will have the lightest wing with the best behavior on the wind. So let's say in a session that you fall off the board and coming back on the board is the hardest part of the sport. Is when you fall and you have to get back on the board. And usually when
mhm,
you have to get back on the board, you have to flip the wing back. So the F1 wing, it's really easy to manage on the wind, not only when you're sailing, in general. When you release the wing and the wing sits flat in the air, it's almost like it flies by itself because it's light and also because of the
mhm.
aerodynamics. So I think they're going on the really, really good way, um, keeping the mentality of the sport being fun, easy, inclusive, not so expensive.
Mhm.
So as far as I see, and as far as I see, the wings are getting better and better. So from the S-Wing V1, we definitely saw improvements on the S-Wing V2, and they released the Strike, and the Strike V1 was already much better than the S-Wing with different characteristics. And now we have the Swing V2 and the Strike V2, and now they're coming with the Swing V3 and the Strike V3. And I guess the
Oh,
Strike V3 will be more high performance oriented. So you
okay.
will be able to jump higher and go faster with the Strike V3. And the Swing V3, it's more surf oriented. So the V3 S Swing will uh, probably be better, even better balanced in the air when you're not using the power on the wing, when you're just releasing it and surfing. The wing will float better for sure. The
Okay.
wings are the wings are coming up with better materials, so the wings will last longer with better seams, better ways of building and construction, because that's something that it has been improving since the
Hmm.
first wings. They are becoming more stronger and lighter, and they're lasting longer without huge improvements. So they're really conservative on the way they build and they improve their things to keep, like, not to have a big gap between the development. So they really take their development step by step.
Yeah, we were like, I started actually, Tom was working at a store in Montreal at the time. And I was like, man, what wing do I buy? I want to get in. I'm not sure what wing. And he's like, I've done a lot of research. F1's the way to go. Like, let's start with those ones. And I just love the
Yeah.
simplicity of the wings, the handle placements of the wings. They seem to be long enough, placed in the perfect position. Canopy tension was just right to help me pump. So I had good low end grunt. It could handle high wind really, really well.
Really well.
And that was just even the first version, and they just got better from there. So I was always a big fan. And a bunch of our buddies out east, like we were all riding F1s, like that's all we started on. And like now I'm a team rider for KT for a store in Vancouver Island, so I'm riding KTs. But like even then, like I yeah, I fell in love with F1. They're awesome.
Yeah, the handles are amazing, and the balanced,
Yep.
the distribution of the handles are perfect. Like if you find your optimal upwind position, the optimal position is where if you go upwind a little bit more, you will stall. So that's your optimal position. And as far as I felt on the F1 wings, man, it's so comfortable when you're on that optimal position. You don't feel that the wing is closing on you. The wing
Hmm.
stays always open and it behaves really well when you're going upwind.
Yeah, I've tried other
Yeah,
brands,
totally.
and some of them they backwind and they'll smack you. Like if
Yeah,
you go too high up, they'll smack you. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
based on that handle positioning as well, like they'll be front hand heavy or backhand heavy, and like based on all that. So I was really impressed with that.
I think what it does, um, if you look at the strut, like let's say you look on the side, you get you cut the wing in half, right? And if you look at the strut, so here let me try to. This is the leading edge of the wing, right? And this is the strut.
Okay.
The strut sitting like this. And on these other wings, the strut's like this. It's almost
Mm.
like you're inside of the wing when you're sailing. And on the F1, you're sitting outside because of the curvature of the strut, especially on your front hand. So the leading edge and the strut, the end of the strut where it meets the leading edge is away from you.
Mm.
And in other companies, you have the leading edge is kind of closing inside.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it kind
Yeah,
of
because I just
projects. It's
remember.
true that on the F1 wings, that boom strut kind of projects the wing a little bit further away from you, and
Yeah.
it's the same in windsurfing as well. You try to get the rig kind of forward and away from you, and that makes things more stable and easier to use. I think, as you're saying, F1 is definitely right off the bat had a product that's really, really versatile, really easy to use, really stable, and it's nice that they're kind of sticking with that, because there are a lot of companies that are developing wings that are just, higher performance, but not really that easy to ride. And I think that
Yeah,
it's
but
important to keep things
yeah,
fun and easy.
what I think is like in the end of the day, it's wing foiling in general is not a cheap sport at all.
Hmm.
So if you want to buy a carbon hydrofoil and if you want to buy your wings, I don't know elsewhere, but in Brazil, you're going to spend a lot of money. And like people that are able to practice the sport at a high performance level, they don't really have the money to buy the gear. People that have
Okay.
money to buy gear, they're over 35 to 40 years old. These
Yep.
people, they have the money to buy the boards. And these people, they're usually working during the week.
Hmm.
So they want to have the sport to have fun and not just to have the highest performance. They don't need that. So it doesn't really make sense. You rather do a product that you can sell for everyone than to have a product where you sell for 10 people that are the high performance guys. And on the
True.
other hand, you have like 200 people that will practice the sports on the weekends and they will buy two, three wings, two boards, one for light wind, one for strong wind. It's a good mentality to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if since you didn't windsurf, and I'm not sure that you saw this happen or not, but windsurfing basically killed itself, or almost, in the 90s, where they just developed gear for professionals, and everybody else was
Hmm.
supposed to kind of try to ride this gear somehow. And
No,
it's
it's
pretty
impossible.
insane. Like, it makes no sense. You're trying to ride gear that a particularly talented human being that spends their entire life on the water is riding, when the vast majority of everybody else, there's no way that it's going to work for them. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
I remember those days. They were skinny, they were long, they were extremely tippy, and then they came out with some wider, shorter kind of stuff, like almost like a plank of plywood. And then anybody could get out, and I guess the same kind of thing. They transitioned that to wing boards, and like 140, 150, we all kind of learned on, and then you get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then you get all these kind of cool different dynamics, and you almost have to relearn the sport a little bit
Yeah.
because it's so crazy. But what size of board's your favorite right now?
Well, it depends, huh? Um, for light wind winging, I mean, really, really light, like 8 knots. I like to have a 85 liter.
Okay.
And then as the wind picks up from 12 knots to 15 knots, I ride a 42 liters. And if
Okay.
it's over 15 knots, I ride 33 liters.
How much do you weigh?
Between 68 and 72. I'm, I'm always
Okay.
changing.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Sounds like basically what I'm writing as well. Makes sense. It's interesting that you're going for the 33 when it's really windy. I felt like once I got much under, 45, 40, I was kind of getting into negative returns for myself. I didn't find that it was that much more fun to ride, and it was considerably more effort, unless it was really, really windy.
Well, it's all about getting used to it, like if it's 15 knots, in 15 knots, it's on the limit for me to ride my 33 liter boards. If it's
Yeah.
15 knots and I want to go with my 33 liter board, I will definitely take a 5.5,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And if it's 18 knots going to 20 knots, I would take a 4.5 wing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. So a lot of a lot of the development that's happening in foils right now, going, higher aspect and thinner and smaller boards and all that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of naturally transitioning into people riding bigger wings as well, because initially everybody was just riding 4 meters, right? Like the first year was everything was 4, maybe 5 meters, and that was already a big wing, a 5 meter. And then today we have 8-meter wings. So that's an interesting point that you're making as well.
Yeah, like I don't like to ride too much of big wings. I prefer to have like let's say I'm gonna ride in 8 knots, right? 8 knots. I prefer to have an 85-liter board in a 1700 foil with a 5.5 wing, then having a smaller foil, a smaller board, but bigger wing. I like
Yeah, I
big
totally
wings,
agree.
but you know what? With my 5.5, I can take off from 8 knots. I don't need to go with lower wind, lighter wind than that.
What one is that from
Totally.
F1?
What's that? Sorry.
What wing is that from F1 to 5.5?
Oh, the V2, the Strike V2.
Okay. Yeah, they pump like a dream.
Man, I ride my 5.5 from 8 knots all the way to 35 knots. I can have one wing and do everything with one wing, and then I would just change foils and boards according to the situation.
Yeah, the first year, I think. Actually, I just got last year was my third. This was my third season, and I finally got a 4 meter. But the first 2 years and 2.5 years, I just had a 5, and regardless of what it was, that's all I rode.
It's nice to ride. It's nice to surf on a small wing. It's
Yes,
so
agreed.
good, man. To
Yeah,
wave ride
totally.
with a small wing, it's the best.
I had a
What do you
fun
do?
fall session in Victoria this year, and it was like 30 and getting to shoulder high kind of swell with a 3 meter. It's my first time riding a 3 KT, and that was a dream. It was so small, and it would sit there parked, and as you're like coming peeling off something, it was unreal.
Yeah, it's so good.
No, yeah, I'm definitely quite a fan of that, of the little wings as well. I don't get to crack out the 3 meter very often, but the 4s definitely come out often, and it doesn't take that much wind, especially if you're kind of going in a mentality like you're saying, Fernando, of having a little bit more volume, a little bit more foil surface area. Then you can get on a 4 or 4.5 quite quickly. Like 15 knots is plenty, in my opinion, for that size of a wing for people our size, anyways.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's tricky because like you can match foil, board, and wing, and there are so many variables in conditions where you can play around. If it's mushy, if it's more a surf oriented session, if like sometimes I like to have big wings if the waves are breaking too much. Because have you ever get caught on the wing on the inside with a small wing? It's a
Oh yeah.
nightmare. So sometimes I rather have a bigger wing. If I get caught, it's easier to get out of the situation with a bigger wing than with a smaller wing, especially when you have small
Totally,
boards. So
totally.
it's really like understanding and acknowledging your material and taking good decisions to go riding.
Yeah, and experimenting and kind of figuring out, what works for you and what you like and what you don't like. All of this comes from time on the water and trying out new things. And you can't, read on a forum and say, okay, yeah, I'm a big wing kind of guy or a small wing kind of guy. You have to try it out and see what you like.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's
Did you ever enter into the competitive space?
I did some competitions on the Wing Foil World Tour in the beginning. Uh,
Okay.
on the first competition for the GWA, I got was third or fourth place. Yes, it was in Brazil. I was third
Okay.
place, and then on the same year, I went to Tarifa for the final event of the year in 2020. I did fourth
Yeah.
place. And
Nice.
then I didn't do any other competition internationally. And then 2021, I did the fourth place as well in Marrocos on the GWA.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, I did some competitions in Brazil. Last year I was the Brazilian champion for the racing league.
Ooh.
And now I'm not really focused on competition, but F1 wants me to do this year the GWA because they will have special wave events. So they
Mhm.
want me to be on the wave events. And I am not really into doing freestyle. I'm more like I prefer wave riding.
Okay.
So I'm happy like what I always did was foil surfing, and there are no competitions for foil surfing.
Hmm.
And now it's nice to have a competition, a wing competition, but wave riding oriented. So it will be nice for me to do what I think I do best, which is a wave riding.
I was just gonna ask if I thought there was some prone foiling competitions in Hawaii, but I guess it's a long way to go, especially when you have all a family and work and stuff like that, just for a competition.
It's not just that, like, well, it's a, I saw they had on the first year they had a competition in Waikiki, and then they have a competition on the States in Kauai. Well, for me, it's really hard to go to the US because it's really expensive, first of all. And like to
Mhm.
get a visa, it's quite of a
Yeah.
hassle to get a visa to go to the US after the pandemic hit. For Brazilians to
Mhm.
get a visa, you have to wait for 3 months to get an interview.
Ouch.
And if they like you, or if they see that you're not lying, and if you have a good reason to go to the US, they will grant you the visa. So it's like, uh, I'm too old for that.
I agree.
I rather
Yeah,
go
that.
to places like where I am really, really welcome, like people want me there. It's like going to
Mhm.
the US is always like I have to beg. I don't want to have to beg to go somewhere, you know. I want to go somewhere where I will be well received. I want to go to places where people want to be there. So like
Yeah,
unless
totally.
yeah, unless there's a big purpose for me to go to the US, I'm not planning to go there any soon. I would love to go to Maui. I have
Yeah.
many friends that live there. I have a lot of friends from back in the day when I lived in California. Nowadays they live in Maui. But like I said, it's so complicated to go there and so expensive that I'd rather just go some other places and don't stress.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Are,
fair
are
enough.
is F1 sending you to New Zealand for the next competition?
No, it's a freestyle, not surf freestyle
Okay.
competition. So
Okay.
I will go to Cape Verde.
Okay.
So this year I
Beautiful.
will do Cape Verde. I will do There will be a competition in Rio.
Okay.
Uh, Probably Maldives. It's not confirmed yet, but probably they will have a competition in there. And Dakar in Morocco is confirmed as well. So
Okay.
for wave events this year is Cabo Verde, Maldives, Rio de Janeiro, and Dakar.
Okay.
Amazing,
That'll be fun.
man. Do you know where the event is in Cabo Verde?
They said either will be in Ponta Preta or Kite Beach.
Punta Preta. Oh my goodness, that's gonna be
That would
carnage
be
central.
heavy.
Yeah, I
Man,
was
I
thinking
hope
about
you
it.
need to bring a lot of wings, man, if it's gonna be Punta Preta. Like,
I know, man. Imagine you get caught on the wind side. I wouldn't know what to do getting caught by a 6 foot, 8 foot wave on the head. What should I do with the wing?
in like 2 feet of water over sharp rocks. Yeah, it's not gonna end
I
well, that's
know.
for sure.
Well, I know the board. I won't wear a board leash because that would
Nope.
chop my body into parts. So I'll just release the board. But the wing, I guess I would maybe just deflate and release it, and then I was just swim.
I think Kieran, we had Kieran on an Australian from the west or east coast of Oz on 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned a lot of guys in bigger surf over there were just going leashless.
Yeah,
They
I
had
know.
yeah, for like even the wing, it's like if you
Yeah.
lose the wing, you just let it go because they didn't want to get tousled in the surf.
Well, you know Tituan, right?
Hmm.
Tituan ride hit some really, really big waves on the wing at his home lake in New Caledonia.
Okay.
And what he does, he goes leashless on the wing and on the board.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
but he always has a boat there. Or
either a boat or someone with a kite that can rescue the wing.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
So that's what he does. He doesn't do it by himself, because if he goes by himself, he will lose the wing and that will be gone. 600 euros gone.
well, for him that doesn't really matter because he gets them for free. But the I think the bigger issue is that those waves are further, kind of far offshore, and getting back home on the tiny little boards that he rides is going to be a long paddle.
No, but in New
So
Caledonia, it's so far to go riding at these places where
yeah,
they go. They gotta go on the boat. You cannot go sailing. It's like 30 kilometers to go out.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's
wow.
on their outer reefs.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
other
New
reefs are
Caledonia
so
has this
far.
like, you should check it out at some point on Google Earth, Luke. It's pretty crazy. They have this really cool ring of reef all around the island, and so on
Oh,
the
really?
inside there must be zero waves, but then on the passes into the reefs, there's just phenomenal wave
And
riding.
sharks all over the place.
Yep,
They
gnarly,
don't bother
gnarly.
you, right?
So gnarly, man.
They don't bother you. You mentioned you're a dad as well, so you got children?
Yeah, I have two. My older daughter just turned 18 3 days ago.
Oh, cool.
And my
Happy birthday to
youngest,
her.
yeah, thanks. It's nice, 18 years old, huh? Nowadays it's fun. But back in
Yeah.
the day it was hard to have her because I was so young.
Hmm.
But it's nice. And my other daughter, she's 5,
Okay.
she's turning
Nice.
6 this year. Yeah.
Nice. Are they into like water sports and stuff too?
Well, my other daughter, now she's living in the US. She's doing going to college, and she's doing weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting.
Oh, cool. Good for her.
Yeah,
Nice.
she likes it. And my youngest, she's actually surfing, but she's not like, as she's still so young, she likes to play. But
Okay.
she already pedals and takes off on her own. So she's getting there.
Nice. Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Must
man.
feel
Yeah.
cool going out with her.
Yeah. We actually, I'm starting to plan to go out, my wife, my daughter, and myself, all three of us, each one of us on their own board.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Tom, you go out with your partner quite a bit, and that must be a cool thing to be able to share that in your family.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun to be able to share this kind of thing with your significant other, and I think it's as we were saying before, it's a very accessible sport. So it's, if your significant other is not particularly athletic or doesn't have a lot of experience with water sports and stuff like that, it's a lot more realistic for them to learn how to wing than it is for them to learn how to windsurf or kitesurf, or
Hmm.
even surf really.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Um, Fernando, if there's people looking to follow you, to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
I think Instagram
Okay.
or Facebook, any social media. I think on Instagram, I leave my WhatsApp number, which is my
Okay.
phone number. So
Okay.
sometimes I don't respond on direct messages. People can always reach me on WhatsApp as well. It's not a problem for me. I like to help people.
Okay. And you said you were running clinics in Brazil?
I do, yeah, I do. Once in a while, it's like I don't like to promote much. I don't do
Okay.
much promotions. And like I like to teach people that are really willing to learn the sport, which is a journey, right?
Hmm.
It's not so easy to learn foiling, to learn winging. It's not something that you do on a weekend, right?
No.
So
Yeah,
people
totally.
that come to me like with the intention of learning the sport, I am super keen to teach from foiling to winging, from like day one all the way until people master the sport and don't need my help anymore. I like to
Hmm.
do that. Otherwise, teaching people just to see if they like the sport, it's not really what I like to do because you will never like the sport on your first lesson.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
hard.
I definitely relate some like this. It's almost like a marriage per se. Like you enter it, you take it slow, you get to know each other, and then as the thing goes on, like especially with water sports and wind sports, like what it's done for my personal life, like it saved my life in so many different ways. And to be able to have that and to hand that off to somebody and for them to see that, I think it's a pretty special thing. So it's awesome that you're able to do that, and kind of help people in that sense. Maybe find something that'll completely change their lives, right?
Oh yeah, it does change. It does change. Like I said,
Yeah.
the first clinics I did, these two guys on the second weekend, three guys, man, they were clueless on water sports.
Hmm.
They never surfed, they never kited, and now they're fully wingers. It's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty sweet.
yeah.
Well, if we can get a little sneak peek on those new F1 foils, I'm always interested to hear what's
Uh,
coming down
Ah,
the pipeline.
the skate. It's a pretty cool name, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
skate. So it's going to be
Skate.
a surfy foil, I guess.
Well, it really depends on you, huh? But yeah, we were looking for something faster and something that would glide longer. We still have the Phantom. The Phantom is really good. I don't know if you guys ever tried the Phantom for us.
No.
No, not
The
yet.
S Yeah, try the Phantom. The Phantom has a 6.5 aspect ratio, which is really good for surfing. You have really good low end speed. So in surfing, it's important to have a foil that can ride at low end, low slow speed because the speed oscillates so much. So sometimes you're going super fast, sometimes you're going really slow. And like when you do a bottom turn, before you go for the top turn, what you want to do, you want to stall a little bit because if you do a bottom turn, if you point towards the top turn at full speed, you won't be able to turn back when you reach the top. So when you do a bottom turn, you want to stall the foil a little bit. So when you're going to the top turn, you're slower than when you started going into the bottom turn. So having a
Okay.
foil that allow you to ride at stall speed and don't lose lift is really important. So the Phantom foil does it really, really well.
Hmm.
But we were looking for high aspect foils to be faster, to ride faster, more performatic, even though the high aspect foil will not turn as easy as a lower aspect foil. You can still set your foil with a shorter fuselage, with a shorter stabilizer to make
Okay.
that foil that would not turn as easy. But now that you change the fuse and the stab, the thing turns. And then you get used to the way that the foil turns because the foil is the wing has less curvature. The wing is
Okay.
flatter, and as it's wider, it will be more difficult to turn, right?
Okay.
Especially in roll, it would be much harder to roll. But I got used to it.
Okay.
I fully got used to it, and nowadays I prefer riding a higher aspect foil to wave ride than a lower aspect foil, unless the waves are really really small. If it's under waist high, I would ride a Phantom. If it's over waist high, I would ride a Skate, and then I would just change the size of the foil according to
Okay.
the size of the waves.
Yeah, so I've ridden primarily Armstrong stuff for the last few years, and I've been pretty stoked on that. But I've gotten
They're
to
really
try a
good.
couple of, yeah, they're fun. They have some good stuff, especially if you have more of a surf bias. I think they have a really, really good product for that. But I've gotten to try, a little bit of higher aspect foils, and I can relate to what you're saying is that they do definitely turn differently than smaller foils, and I haven't really felt the magic yet with them, but I think I need to try smaller ones. The only one that I tried was I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was like the Lift 180 or something like that, which is a pretty big foil. So maybe with the little ones like the 120 or the 100, it could be more interesting. But I just like being able to slow down and kind of turn in the pocket. Whereas the high aspect foils, it feels like you need to be just kind of doing these big GS turns, which is less what I like.
Well, I think it's in the end of the day, it's all about getting used to it. Like every foil brand they have their own designs, and each design rides its own way. So you have to get used. It's
Totally.
like it's what I say. People ask me about foils, and I say, man, there is no bad foils. Every foil is good. It's all about getting used to it. You have to get used to it. When you change from brand to brand, you will feel it, you will hate it, but after a few times you go out, you get used to it, you know. So like I tried the
That's a good
lift
point.
one. I see people pumping around on the lift high aspect 120. I see people pumping around prone 40. And the other day I tried for my friends, and like I was winging, I was not surfing, but I felt no lift at all. So it's
Yeah,
weird.
it's a different balance points, and I think as you're
That's the
saying, I
thing,
think
balance point.
today I think as you're saying today, there's very few bad foils. They're just different, and you need to figure out how to, what the foil is designed for, and what works for that foil, what doesn't work for that foil, and it's really, really important to have it set up properly on a board that works with it, because you can easily have a foil that doesn't match with the board, and you feel like, wow, this is a terrible foil, but it's actually just a poor match with the board, or just a poor match with your riding style. So it's not necessarily a bad foil.
And we're only in the beginning, huh? It's been only like 3 or 4 years that we're doing this. So imagine how much it will change.
I
Oh
think when we're
yeah,
all 50 and Tom's still 35, it'll be awesome. It's gonna be crazy. You turned 40 this year, Fernando?
Yeah, I'll turn 40 this year.
Shit, I just turned 40 a couple weeks ago. It still feels weird.
Yeah, man, I know. It's like, you know what? Like the only thing I see is like I'm getting bald, and my gray hairs are growing more and more, but I still
Yep,
feel really, I still feel strong. I still feel happy, healthy and motivated. So I
nice.
think it's all we need, huh? We don't need much
Oh
more.
yeah. No, not much more than that. Tom, you got a good future ahead of you, young pup.
gotta keep
He's
foiling.
about to turn 30 this year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a time to be
Yeah.
alive. I wish I was 18, man.
Oh man, I would love to start that yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
think if you're 16, 17, 18 right now and getting into wind sports and wanting to be a professional, it's a really good time to be alive. That's for sure.
Oh man, I see how much the kids they develop, you know, like I've been following these kids, and they were like 16 1 or 2 years ago, and nowadays they're doing like huge back flips, front flips, everything flips around. It's crazy how they develop so fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
No
what the
fear, man.
standard right now. Well, yeah, no fear and elastic bodies and the fact that they're going in and they're pulling sevens on both sides and backs and fronts, and it's I don't even know what's gonna come in a couple of years. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, it's nice to watch. I just want
Uh,
these kids surfing more. They
yep.
need to surf more to understand better how to wave ride.
And I think it's cool that they're now including that in the GWA. I think that's going to be so awesome to watch because that was such a huge area that I was interested in watching because it can go from, well, I guess Cabo is going to be the first one. I'm stoked to watch that.
Yeah, we're
Mm,
looking forward for this event.
yeah,
We're not sure if it's gonna be in Ponta Preta, but either way, just to have the wave format, it would be good for the sport, because wing foiling, it's much more foiling than winging. It's like I always say to everybody that wing foiling is like 70% foil and 30% wing, especially in
Yeah.
surfing where you release the wing to ride a wave. So it's
Oh
much
yeah,
more
I'd say
surf,
even more than that.
even
I'd
more, huh?
easily give it, yeah, I'd easily give it 80, 85%. Like if you're in a surfing mode, you're just surfing the foil all the time. Even when you're riding with the wing powered up, you're so over on top of the foil, kind of leaning over and banking into the wind like you would be in more of a free ride mode. So
It's actually pretty fun to wave ride with the power on the wing too.
yeah, you should try windsurfing sometime. I think you'd really like it. That's
Well,
that's
I did a beginner lesson. I did one beginner lesson on windsurfing, but for me to learn to the point where I would put my feet on the straps and go fast, it would take too long. Like I needed a lot of time to really learn windsurfing. And I rather just focus right now in winging because I still have so much to learn.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally. And I
windsurfing
think
takes a
that's the
while.
cool thing. Yeah, and it's the cool thing about winging is that you can, you can progress and you can learn the sport relatively quickly. Whereas when surfing, it's gonna take some time. There's not really, there's
Yeah,
no way
because in
around that.
windsurf, well, in windsurfing to be really fun, it has to be over 25 knots. Otherwise, it's not fun.
No, I don't agree with that. I think the best sessions I have when surfing are around 15, maybe 20, but 15 is
Yeah,
great
but
as
with
well.
waves, with
With
waves,
With
waves.
right?
weight, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Flat water, like even rollers. 4.7, 4.2 is my favorite, and I need about 25, 26, 27. Yeah. But waves can be a different scene for sure.
Yeah. Once you
Nice.
get into kind of
Nice.
float and ride windsurfing, that's pinnacle of wind sports in my mind. But that's
It's
very much
another
out of reach.
another convo.
Yeah, another convo, and it's not a reality for most people in most places. So I think that's where winging kind of comes in and is just so great.
Oh yeah. Well, hey Fernando, I want to say thanks for joining us, man. This was such a fun chat, and looking forward to watching you compete. And gonna be curious if it's Ponte Preta. We're gonna definitely watching that. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
last year,
yeah.
not last year, but the year before, the event we had in Dakar, it
Okay.
was broadcasted on YouTube, and it was like a full wave event, and it was really nice to watch the show. All my
Yeah.
friends from Brazil, they were watching me when I was competing, and they had this broadcasting format just like the WSL surfing
Nice.
competitions, and it's
Nice.
really nice to watch on the internet. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, it's cool to be connected, cool to support, and to see where it's going. Because I don't think there's a better way of learning unless you can watch people that are a lot more skilled than
Man,
you are. Yeah.
everything I learned from surfing, I learned from the videos. I watched
Yep.
so much surfing videos that it really helps to
Yep.
improve for sure.
Yeah. So for those at home, keep in mind that even if it's winter time or wherever you are, you can still kind of pop a video in. And I did that for windsurfing. Like I watched Beginner to Winner from Jem Hall, and and then the next year I went out and it was just significantly better. And I was like, huh, it does really work.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Gets
yes,
in there.
yeah.
Gets in
Yeah.
there.
It's all about having your mind focused, on what you want to do, and you research, even if you're away from the ocean, from the action. If you keep your mindset towards it, you will still learn for sure.
Yep. No, that's a good point. Well, Fernando, man, thanks a
Totally.
lot. And when those new foils come out, if you want to come back on and show it to us when they are getting released, that would be sweet. We'd love to walk through them with you.
Oh, right on. We're gonna do
Yeah,
the
that'd be
shooting
super
for
fun.
these spoils in next month. We will be shooting for
Okay.
the product shooting. and I
Okay.
guess it will be released around April. So for
Okay.
sure, you
Yeah.
guys will see. I am writing
Yeah.
already some prototypes.
Okay.
All the times, all the videos that I put up on Instagram, pretty much on all the videos I'm writing the prototypes. I'm testing different sizes of stabilizers, testing different
Okay.
masts, and already testing the new front wings. So
Oh, yeah.
everything I'm writing lately is the protos that we're about to launch.
It's hidden
Cool.
behind the scenes, and it'll be fun to see them come out.
Yeah, yeah. I need to work on that. I'm not allowed to do
Oh, yeah.
pictures and promote
No, no.
the design yet.
That
Even
makes sense.
the graphics are amazing as well. You guys will like
Yeah.
it.
No, yeah. When they
Thanks.
are ready to get released to the public, that would be awesome to see.
Yeah, I will for sure do a little spoiler.
Cool. All
Cool.
right, guys.
Awesome. Well, thanks
Well,
for
man.
coming on, Fernando. It's super fun.
Yeah,
And
guys, I do appreciate the invite, the invitation for me to be here, chatting with you guys. It's a big pleasure for me to be able to speak about what I do, my passions, and even though my English is not so fluent, I haven't been practicing much, but it was nice for sure.
hey, it's better than my Portuguese. All right, brother. We will chat again. Thanks for joining
For
us,
sure.
everybody.
Right now,
Cheers.
guys, I'm
Have a
always
good night,
available.
guys.
If you guys want to know anything, just hit me up. I'm always available. You guys have a
We
good
will.
one too.
Absolutely. All right. Ciao. Thanks for joining Tom and I on this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.